least those of us who were here, remember the publication of the Ganowski report and the fact that we had a briefing which I think almost every member of the council attended. We then had a series of issues, we were told, that showed how terrible Wirral was. And some of them were, I thought, rather extreme. In terms of, we've had 2 public interest reports, no other authority even gets one every 10 years or some such strange statistic. But we've had more investigations since then. And this is really the concerning thing. It seems that maybe the Audit Commission didn't get it quite right. At least that was a decision that this council made on investigating various officers, if you remember. And I feel that, in fact, those of us who are members of the council may have had political differences. We did not believe that we were running the basket case council. We didn't believe that. The question now is, what really was happening? Why did we get an inaccurate report? Where do we come from? Where are we coming from? Are we coming from a basket case council or a council that had problems but actually was similar to other councils in this land that maybe hadn't got the same publicity as we had because we happened to have a whistleblower, and Martin Morton has been mentioned. If he hadn't said it publicly, what would our perception be? And I feel that, in fact, there are many councils which have got irregular staffing and so on. Bullying is something all the surveys show that most employees in local government as anywhere else, most employees over half say that they've experienced bullying at work and so on. I'm not, obviously I'm not justifying anybody, but I'm asking a question. Where did we come from? What evidence do we have? And the next question, which we need to know to see where we're going to, is, well, where are we now? What is happening now? Now, I'm quite happy to say, well, obviously, if you publicise a particular area, people are doing the damage, I hope, to make sure that that area is all right. Do we really know what's happening throughout the council? Do we have a means of questioning anybody to say, well, can we actually make sure that these things are happening now? Now, really we should know, shouldn't we? So what is the answer to that? We don't know where we came from. We don't seem to know where we're going to. My opinion is that this is actually, as a sort of governance body, our prime function to actually ensure that we can answer that. And I am concerned that too many of the comments that have been made seem to refer to the mythical golden councils that there are around the country, which a few years ago we just said, well, we're better than that. And I think that that needs to have focused work, but in particular, how can we guarantee to the people of this borough, how can we guarantee to our employees that there are problems, that we will support them when they raise problems, and so on. And that's a question. I can't answer it. I do think this process should have resulted in it, because I would like to say something about democracy where and I'm not going to make it critical, but I would like to say there was cross-party cooperation for most of the time. I didn't go to all the meetings. I must remember a year ago, well, it was a year ago, whenever it started. But certainly, I was, for example, struck by Councillor John Hale and his approach, which I thought was constructive, polite, and so on. John Hale always is polite. I suppose I'm prejudiced, and this is about our Constitution. I remember 19 years ago, just almost, when I attended my first meeting, and I tried to raise a point of order, and people stood up and said, no, you've got to say some magic formula and exactly what it is you're breaking. I counted 5 times senior members of this council stood up after me when I'd been slapped down and did the same thing, but that was accepted by the mayor, and I thought this was a strange organisation. And I think there is a lesson there, and that is, John Hale, by the way, was one of them. Not forgive him, he's a nice man. But I do think that there is a difference between having rules and keeping to them, and maybe that's a lesson that we, along with many, many other councils, should learn. So that is my concern. The second thing is, the second test that we have is not really whether we as councillors enjoy meeting people understand, well, some people understand as a Labour council. I think some people don't even understand sometimes what exactly that means, because my wife said that they live busy lives, and we meet here and they live somewhere else. What?
So it means you get a food tax.
Technologists carry on. Just ignore them.
So, I do think that that should be our criterion rather than our own comfort. Do people understand us? And I don't think on those issues we've got the evidence for what we're telling the people. And I don't I'm not attacking anybody that calls integrity, honesty, or anything else, but I do not feel the evidence says that. And finally, the improvement board and the improvement board, yes. Seemingly, we've got a situation where they're being quoted a body that doesn't make decisions, hasn't got a decision-making ability, a body that, in fact, has clearly, I would finish the sentence in the face, but it has clearly no means of enforcing anything, because all of the responsibility is making decisions and so on. Anyway, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your forbearance, and I will finish what I'm going to talk.
Thank you very much. And now it's open to members. We're trying to make sure that every member, as it's a very important issue, every member wants to speak. So will you keep it down to 3 minutes, please? Councillor Blake, who is the first one, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll do my very best to keep to 3 minutes. Mr. Mayor, 12 years or so ago, when the Cabinet model came into local government, there were select committees, as they were called back then. They were set up to directly monitor each Cabinet portfolio. This was there was no overlap across committees, and officers handed the same reports to various committees. All that went well, Mr. Mayor. Cabinet members used to be invited along. They could be asked questions, Cabinet members could ask questions of the select committee, and everything seemed to work okay. Then the 10 committees were deemed as being too unwieldy, taking too much officers' time, and they were up to 6. And Mr. Mayor, whilst this wasn't ideal, and did result in some overlapping of responsibilities, it was in the main manageable and workable. Now, Mr. Mayor, we see that Labour wants to cut the 6 committees to 3, combining some very contentious committees with cut routes extremely dangerous, that are failing to be able to scrutinise properly. This is particularly relevant to Children and Young People's Committee and the Health and Wellbeing Committee. Mr. Mayor, we've seen over recent years, and not just here in our borough, catastrophic failures of children's services and adult social services. We all remember Victoria Climbier, Baby P, and let's not forget what was very unfair in overcharging vulnerable adults. I therefore find it incredible and downright foolhardy to think that one committee will be able to adequately monitor and scrutinise these 2 vast departments. Mr. Mayor, this is typical of Labour's control-freak, dictatorial, we know what's best attitude. Mr. Mayor, turning to the other committees, again history shows when earlier forums were set up, each contained 3 wards. In the main was a couple of 2, when the geographical spread made keeping it local difficult. So it was agreed by this council, the earlier forum structure would change to 11, each containing 2 wards. This, Mr. Mayor, did make a difference and gave local people a real opportunity to have a say in what went on in their communities. And yet we have Labour wanting to grab power back to the centre by taking away local area forum funding in a vast area constituency committee structure with a total amount of funding far less than the area forum. Mr. Mayor, another example of Labour's failure to understand what the people of this borough want. Finally, Mr. Mayor, let's look at the changes to council procedures. This goes through effectively gag councillors from debate in this council chamber and put even greater power in Labour's hands. Sadly tonight, Mr. Mayor, we are witnessing the destruction of the last vestiges of democracy in Wirral. And the residents of this borough will be ruled by controlling, tyrannical Labour group whose only interest, Mr. Mayor, whose only interest is in having ultimate power to impose its will on the people of Wirral. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to finish. Mr. Mayor, where will it end? What next? Wirral will be twinned with Beyond the End. Mr. Mayor, I am the council to reject Labour's proposals and support the Conservative amendments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Talking about controlling and tyrannical, the very opposite of that will now ask Councillor Fox to speak.
Thank you. Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have to say that this is actually one of the times we probably will have a proper debate because we have something to debate around. What has been produced is a new constitution or a revised constitution. What we have in terms of amendments are simply objections, and we will say no. So the option that we have to vote for on this side of the chamber is for no change. Yeah, we've had all the criticisms of what's gone on in the past, but your answer to that as two parties is effectively no change, because none of us can vote for these amendments. All we've had is a loose description of what the committees are. If you really genuinely wanted to change the constitution, you could have sat down with your mentors or your party organisation, people who can advise you, and could come forward with what it would look like. At the moment, you're asking my members to vote for something that is untried and untested. And at the moment, the only people who can actually work on this is the council leader, who's put something forward that will change. So let's knock a few things on the head. Councillor Green had the audacity to talk about the brown bin tax. He had the opportunity, and I'll come back to this point, he had the opportunity to move an objection at Budget Council, to remove that from the budget and find where the money was coming from. He didn't do so, yet now he tries to get it to pay. And strangely enough, he has been in power in this council, along with Councillor Hardy, along with the two parties' officers, have had a period of power, and did they move from a cabinet and executive security split? Did they take this to that Shangri-La that they now talk about? No, they didn't. They had the chance, they had the time, they had the opportunity, they did not do so. You had the votes in council, you could have done that, but you didn't do so. So let's move on. There's enough things. I'm going to get lectures tonight, I think. We're going to get a lecture about getting rid of two committees. One of them is around adult social services and adult safeguarding. We have a training session on Monday night for adult safeguarding, a very informative one. Talk about the new structures, how the council was delivering it, the staff, people, what it meant. Who turned up? How many Conservative members turned up to that training session? How many? Not one. Not one. Sadly, I don't know what's going on within the Liberal Democrat group. We've read the headlines about it. I don't know what was going on there, but none of those turned up. And sadly, I have to say, only 5 members turned up, but gladly, they were all Labour members who bothered to turn up. If that's the measure of your contribution or our contribution to learning about safeguarding, then we still have some way to go. Safeguarding is enshrined in the corporate plan. It can be enshrined in the year's work or the work programme of the new committee that will take over that. And there are lessons to be learned from combining looking at children's safeguarding and adult safeguarding. That is a lesson that we've learned in the past, and that would suit better if it was all under the same committee, because the lessons learned from children, which we have apparently a better record than adults. I just remind people again, the committee system, without the detail, without the budgets, is not any very much different than the cabinet system, and people will recollect and talk fondly about it. I will remind this council, though, it was the committee system that actually put in the policies that led to the overcharging within the financial report. It was the committee system that made that decision. So if you think the committee system is foolproof, it ain't. If you think the cabinet system is foolproof, it isn't. What I do believe, though, and what I am very shocked at, is the lack of engagement of certain senior members in the process we are going through. We have been there, we've been to the floor of the pavilion, and the atmosphere is better than in this chamber. We've had a place to talk, an atmosphere to contribute, to bounce ideas off each other. But we have not had the engagement. We now see that apparently that training councillors. Learning about subject matter in detail that they go and scrutinise is something that is a pair. We have the training mafia who are apparently monitoring us and making criticism of us going to training sessions. If that's an organisation that is looking backwards, is not looking the right way, or everybody, staff and everybody need better training to do their job better. Okay, who you are, what party you're in. So I would ask if the reflection at the safeguarding of adults is people responding to this threat or this perceived threat that training is a bad thing. Please resist. Please resist those people in your groups who are saying do not attend training. Please attend. Please make best use of it, because the more people attend, the more value for money it is for us and citizens of the borough. Edit forums have mixed success. There may be advantages in a critical mass of organisations coming together. It may be that we could have localised planning decisions. It may be that we could have localised licensing decisions. It may be on a head basis or a once basis that we could talk directly about the street cleansing contractors. We could talk directly to the refuse cleansing contractors about how those services are delivered. Because with less money around, we are going to have to think differently. The opposition have put amendments forward that say do nothing effectively. They haven't put something forward that I could personally vote for. They haven't prepared to debate. I'll sit down now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Before my time starts, can I thank Tom for a very kind remark about me with I took it already. Mr. Mayor, I refer to the Chief Executive's report to Cabinet on the 18th of April, page 46, item 6, supplement 5.3, quoting, I quote, "The views of the Democracy Working Party, which has met on a number of occasions, have helped inform these proposals. I consider this to be misleading, as it may be taken to imply that there was general support for the proposals. In fact, the majority of the Working Party were opposed to the proposals, as evidenced by the order paper tonight. Furthermore, Mr. Mayor, the Working Party met on only 5 or 6 occasions, for no more than 1.5 hours at a time, although it refers to the chairman of the Working Party, as we did overrun 10 minutes on the last occasion. And this was to review a constitution of 199 pages of detailed and contentious proposals. I don't believe this has been anything else except a simple exercise carried out in order to claim that there has been full cross-party consideration and consultation when nothing could be further from the truth. Neither this Working Party or the various floor of meetings was it intended to allow any change of a predetermined direction. There was nothing but public relations stunts. The result of all this, Mr. Mayor, is that even greater power lies with the Cabinet and the Chief Officers, which, in my opinion, was the intention all along. Mr. Mayor, 14 months ago, on a poll of 61 councils, over 70% voted for a committee system, equating to 43 for a committee system, 18 against. Even if you assume that the 5 voting members, non-voting members supported the present system, and the 8 new Labour members supported the present system, there would still be 35 in favour of the committee system and 31 in favour of the overview scrutiny system. Of course, Mr. Mayor, that was a secret ballot. George Davis intimated at the Democracy Working Party recently that we could have another ballot for the public vote. Bring on the whips, George. Democracy Labour style. The plain fact is that democracy is best served when all parties, in proportion to their numbers, are represented in the decision-making process at all levels of the council. Concerning the overview and scrutiny committees, let's kill off one kite being thrown, that is that the overview and scrutiny committees will have more power. At present, these committees can determine the subjects on which they want to report and their regularity. They can call in Cabinet decisions for consideration and propose amendments, but without decision-making powers, since their deliberations can be overridden by Cabinet. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee can take any area within their remit, whether or not subject to previous Cabinet decisions. For instance, from the forward plan, it could be from just anywhere in their services. Examine it and send recommendations of decisions, they're not allowed to do that, recommendations to Cabinet, who may amend or accept or reject them. Nothing in the new Constitution adds to these powers. The only thing that has changed is the name of the committees. On the other hand, they may lose powers if you look at Article 6, 6.2, page 16, dealing with the powers of the coordinating committee, there is ample opportunity to interfere with and constrain activities of the other policy and support committees, and is, in my view, designed to do so. The changes, if I may come to the council proceedings, are clearly designed to reduce the time available for opposition members' views, whilst increasing the time for majority party members, and especially the cabinet members, to propagate their political views, in addition to reducing, if not eliminating, the opportunity to openly debate contentious matters. Any third world dictator would be proud of the authors of this document. As for any welcome by the improvement board of the proposal, I don't know if that's so enough. I only say that I do not know who they are, what their attitude to democracy is, or whether they have any experience or skills in these matters. What I do know is they have no powers, they make no decisions, and unlike me and every other person in this chamber, they are not elected by the public. Finally, Mr. Mayor, can I say this? What the public will find astonishing is that the additional powers for the Labour Party and the reduced influence over opposition is being introduced when the Labour Party is solely responsible for the huge damage to the reputation of this authority and the consequent introduction of special measures to Wirral. Mr. Mayor, I am heartened by the similarity between the two objections. It means that when the pendulum swings, and it will, it seems to be more, it will, and it always will. When it does, Mr. Mayor, these proposals can be consigned to the dustbin where they belong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I know a lot of work has gone into producing this report for us tonight. I personally have attended a lot of the many meetings that councillors have been invited to feed into this process and put together this report tonight. So I'm quite surprised at the number of councillors that didn't turn up to a single one of these meetings and has turned up tonight to say, well, I didn't know anything about this. And it's the same councillors that are falling into power grab. And it seems to me that if many of these councillors actually took advantage of these opportunities and perhaps they could exercise the power that's being given to them instead of criticising it and being taken away. Mr. Mayor, I was elected almost 3 years ago to the day, I think it's next week, and ever since then we've been talking about change. In the face of several critical reports that this authority has received over this time, we've all called for change. The public want change, and I think we ourselves voted unanimously for change on a number of occasions. And this report tonight in front of us, Mr. Mayor, this is what change looks like. We were criticised for the abnormal becoming the normal. But let's not forget that this is what normal councils do. This is what normal looks like. And we all made a commitment, Mr. Mayor, to change this council for the better, and we would be foolish to forget that tonight. Now, Jeff and the Tories have raised some concern about power being taken away from councillors, but from what I can see, this actually gives more opportunities to raise issues of concern, not less. And it's always been my view, and I don't know if this is controversial, but it's always been my view that of all the meetings that I attend as councillor, full council meetings are well, quite often pointless or not as important as others. And I say that before the rumble starts. I say that not because full council doesn't make important decisions, because it clearly does. But in my experience, we often nod through the business as quickly as possible in order to get to the notices of motion. Now, the notices of motion, Mr. Mayor, are always on important themes, and we always exchange interesting arguments on important issues. But let's not forget that notices of motion often carry little weight, and at the end of the meeting, usually a lot of hot air is being expelled, but very little action has been agreed. Now, I'll also point out, Mr. Mayor, that more often than not, between 15 and 20 motions on the agenda, only one, maybe two of these are often discussed. Now, the new system before us gives more power to notices of motions and councillors and ensures that every single one of them is considered and discussed. Perhaps not in this chamber, least it will get a proper and full hearing. Now, to me, this is clearly a better system. Now, like the leader of the authority said, these are not massive transformational changes. There is no power grab by officers or by cabinet members or any councillors. This is what normal councils look like, and this is what the people of Wirral have been asking for a very long time.
We've taken, definitely now taken a list of people who want to speak. The following 6 or 7 in this order: Councillor Hornby, Councillor Adrian Jones, Councillor Fogle, Walter Smith, Geoffrey Watt, Pat Hackett, and Wendy Clements, and then we'll see who else there is up to that. Okay, so it's now my Councillor Hornby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to address the question of scrutiny and the supposed aim to restore power to members. I have to admit that in various forms I've been critical of the effectiveness of scrutiny in the past, but I must say that in respect of health and well-being, there has, in my view, now been a far more positive approach. This is due to various circumstances, the input and attitude of senior officers, and above all, the demands by members themselves. Now it is suggested we will have to share scrutiny time with colleagues whose interests are as specialist as our own. This will lead to a reduction of scrutiny time, and as far as we are concerned, the added responsibility of public health issues adds to the workload. I wonder if it's fully appreciated what is involved in our work in 2013. Firstly, we are joined by representatives of carers and the Older People's Parliament, who always fully participate in our deliberations. Do we tell them, sorry, no room or time for you in the future? Secondly, the GP's commissioning group, the chief executive at Arrow Park Hospital, and from time to time other NHS officers are in attendance. They are not there just to impart information, but also to be questioned as part of our scrutiny process. Mr. Mayor, in this connection, it should be of particular interest that a small working group are currently looking at workable procedures to monitor our hospitals in the light of what happens in mid-staffs. This was our initiative, but does follow from the leaders' call earlier this year. I must repeat, and I fear there could be much repetition on this particular subject this evening, that the specific proposals on scrutiny in my area of interest and influence have not been thought out, and as such are unacceptable. Please let us have a rethink. I am afraid that Councillor McLachlan's assurances of the 14th of April gave me little comfort. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Could I congratulate you on staying within your time? First one this evening.
Yes.
Anybody else would like to stay within that time? Only practically. Okay, next one is Councillor Adrian Jones, who always stays within his time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, paragraph 1 of the Tory amendment quite mischievously misses the point, and they know it. Of course, it would be dangerous to remove scrutiny. It will not be dangerous to remove a system, a committee system that provides only the farce of post hoc scrutiny, which for all meaningful purposes, Mr. Mayor, in fact isn't really scrutiny at all, certainly not the way some parties have behaved. What is being offered will remove a reactive system and it will replace it with a participative system, and that will facilitate meaningful scrutiny during the formative stages of decision making. That is a big leap forward compared to what we've had before. Paragraph 2, Mr. Mayor, harks back to the old ineffective area forums, entirely missing the point once again. By coordinating Wirral's constituency areas, embracing council, health, emergency services and so on, we will at last operate a unified approach to all of the services provided. Now, the old area forum homes in many cases are inferior to what local communities have already themselves created. In the ward where we are now at this very moment, we have two residents' associations, we have a central park committee, we have a committee that brings together all the various sporting associations, dog walkers, allotment societies, and all those sort of things. 100 or so yards from here, there's a luncheon club, there's a community centre, a quarter of a mile in the other direction, we've got a youth club that never cost the council a penny because it's wholly voluntary. We're presently establishing the Seacombe Amateur Boxing Club, which will also provide low-cost adult fit passes. And we have just installed a high-quality professional boxing ring at no cost to the council. All of these genuinely local bodies have the full support of the local councillors, the police, the other services, the council. They all have attendances far higher than the area forum, where those of us at the top table invariably outnumber the public. And that's the reality of what we're looking at. But paragraph 3, Mr. Mayor, is it's exquisite, it's perfectly exquisite. This one starts with an incomplete sentence, then there's a complete sentence in the middle, and then it closes with an incomplete sentence. That's an intellectual detachment entirely worthy of the main opposition party. Mr. Mayor, the new arrangements that we're putting in place may diminish the opportunity for endless juvenile debates in undergraduate format, where no more than 3 tabled motions ever get discussed anyway in an evening here. Not a word is spoken on the remaining ones, because the private donors, the people who fancy themselves perhaps as lovies with their theatrical propensities, have used up all the time. So it doesn't happen anyway, Jeff. So what are you on about?
Congratulations on very nearly staying within your time. Captain Jerry Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to support this amendment. Wirral is the last place on earth that needs less scrutiny. We have an unfortunate history of having dire problems in our adult social services department. And here we are proposing that we reduce scrutiny to half a meeting 3 times a year. Have the lunatics taken over running the asylum? It's only a matter of 2 years ago that we had a debacle of Martin Northman's whistleblowing saga and the Anna Kalinsky report that brought a tsunami of complaints to the door of adult social services. Even with the production of this report, those of us sitting on adult scrutiny couldn't even get basic questions answered, like who was responsible and what were we going to do about it. Our questions were brushed away under the cloak of a redacted report, which I'm sure you all remember. We weren't allowed to help you tell the truth about what had gone on and what was being done to clean up the mess. How does this square with these plans to reduce the time to ask any questions? Is this a big plan to improve our services by shutting up the councillors who might be asking inconvenient questions? Less scrutiny time equals less difficult questions. It took years to get the Children and Young People's Department to the outstanding position it is in now. Mixing adults with children means that the CYPD will be swamped with adults. Take your eye off the ball and Wirral could end up with a Victoria Clembier. Don't forget we've had several blood shaves. One only a few months ago when one of our looked after children was murdered and triggered a serious case review. Did we ask enough questions? Did we ask enough questions about that? Not really. The agenda was too large and we had to move on to the next step.
Please, let us carry on. Okay.
Not really. The agenda was too large and we had to be moved on to the next topic. There wasn't time. Underlying the position as it is at the moment, we have very little time to carry out proper scrutiny functions in both adults and children. Are we putting our vulnerable adults and children at risk by sweeping them all into a joint scrutiny function that is just going to pay lip service and tick boxes? Both these departments are huge and have major roles in the lives of people on Wirral. It might look good on a strategic plan, but the reality on the ground would be a very different Labour councillors as well as the rest of us who will be affected by this plan. Are you all really comfortable with this? One meeting every quarter to scrutinise both these departments is totally inadequate and will put Wirral in the forefront of a disaster waiting to happen. The measure of a good society is how it treats its elderly vulnerable adults and how it nurtures its children. We are on a slippery slope to doing neither. Do we really want that for the people of Wirral? I don't think so. Please can I ask you to have a rethink about the merger of these two committees. Let's inject some common sense and practicality before we get carried away ticking boxes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next Councillor Walter Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've probably been one of the most vociferous critics of the previous type of cabinet government we've had, and a lot of my views probably coincide with Councillor John Hare. However, I've looked at these proposals and I've listened to the way they've been put forward, and I'm swayed by the fact that these new committees will in fact will have input into the policies and a chance to influence the outcomes, rather than the previous way where they seem to be handed down to us like on the tablets of stone. So I think there is a big improvement in that, and I'm certainly happy to work along with it. When Councillor Jeff Green mentions about the sort of charges that